Welcome to the Fiscally Awesome podcast. I'm your host, Matt Gardner, CEO and co-founder of Hiline. Today on the podcast, we're very excited to welcome Leah Brite from Gusto. Leah is Product Marketing Director of Benefits at Gusto, and she's here to drop a whole bunch of great knowledge about employee benefits and why it's important for small businesses. All right, Leah, welcome to the Fiscally Awesome podcast. Very excited to have you here. Thanks for joining.
Matt, thank you so much for having me on. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, so Leah's joining us from Gusto. I think probably just to set some context, Leah, why don't you just intro yourself, a little bit about Gusto and where you've been in your career leading up to this point.
Yeah, you bet. So yeah, I work at Gusto, and Gusto is a top-rated platform for payroll, benefits, and HR. And so I would say what makes Gusto special and unique is that everyone who works here at Gusto, and we call them Gusties, they are just incredibly passionate about making it easier for small businesses to succeed and thrive, putting all the tools that you need to hire, pay, and manage your team at your fingertips. So think payroll, think employee benefits like health insurance, hiring, onboarding, talent management, time tracking, attendance, and bill pay. All those things are part of the Gusto platform. And at Gusto, I lead product marketing focused on our benefits side of our business. And I've been in product marketing for about 15 years now. I've been in marketing for even longer, always kind of in the tech sector, but worked in different industries in the tech sector. I think product marketing is one of those parts of the business that is often misunderstood. It's still in its infancy of being understood. Like product management's a few steps further along than us. So I always like to tell people, I think of product marketing in kind of four key areas. The first of which is customer research and market understanding. This is your competitive intelligence, understanding where the market is moving, developing your buyer personas, identifying what customers really want in a product and how they like to be messaged and marketed to. The second is then that positioning and messaging, defining that unique value prop that we bring to the market and what really makes us stand out from the competition. Third is then go-to-market strategy. So defining how we're going to tell the market, how we're going to tell customers and prospects about our products. Pairing with product management to figure out, okay, we had these insights about the customers and we figured out that these were the right features to build onto the product roadmap. And now we get to go tell the market and our customers about this incredible value we're bringing to the market. And so how are we going to do that? So this includes content creation, thought leadership, campaign development, sales enablement, and it's a highly cross-functional role. So of course, we are not doing all of this by ourselves or in isolation. We are getting to work with an incredibly talented cross-functional team to bring all of this to life. And fourth is, of course, performance measurement, analysis, and optimization. So you cannot measure what you do not manage, or you can't manage what you don't measure. And so, because a key piece of it, are we setting the right OKRs? Are we making sure that all of our KPIs are laddering into, how are we going to measure whether it's effective in the short term versus the medium term and long term? What are our leading and our lagging indicators? Are they rolling up to company OKRs that are really making sure that we're making an impact on revenue, on our customers, on the things that we care about most? And so this is all about also, I would say, experimentation, testing, learning, iterating, moving fast. This marketplace moves so incredibly fast. And so we are always running at a rapid clip just to make sure that we're keeping up with the market for customers.
That's a great overview. And I think it is very misunderstood how important the role is. You just described a whole bunch of things that are more than a full-time job. I think oftentimes founders play this role. Like if you're a founder or you start a business, you're basically doing product marketing all the time. I think a lot of that translation of vision into meeting need or demand, they don't know they're doing it, but they're still doing it. I think you're probably just doing it on a different level with science and data.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like anything else in life, we become better at the things that we practice. When you hire a product marketer, this is a practitioner that has been practicing these skills for years and decades, and so have really honed the craft. But you're absolutely right.
So Gusto is obviously crushing it. Gusto is one of the first partners that we ever had in the services space. It's probably been a relationship that's been at least 6 or 7 years at this point. How many small businesses are on Gusto's platform today?
Yeah, great question. There are over 400,000 small businesses now on Gusto. So we serve an incredible customer base all across the US in so many different industries with different employee counts. Yeah, over 400,000 small businesses now.
That's crazy. How many employees?
Yeah, we're just over 2,700 employees. And those are also spread across the US. We like to think that we have 4 home bases, those being San Francisco, Denver, and New York, and that our last home base is remote. We have an incredible talent really spread across the US and Canada.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, you guys have been on just a wild up into the right ride. And I think you changed the game with payroll benefits for small businesses. It's been like really, I think, hard to work with some of the legacy players out there. I think they weren't really purpose-built for small businesses. They were built for a little bit more upmarket. I think you guys have done incredible work. Yeah, today we're going to talk more about benefits than payroll. Everybody generally conceptually understands payroll, right? Sure. It's pretty easy to understand, but I think benefits for small businesses is really intimidating to understand what should I offer, what's competitive, what's going to help drive employee engagement and retention. It can be expensive, so it's hard to understand what's the full cost, how much should I bear, how much should my employees bear, what's fair. So there's tons and tons of questions. We get them all the time. So maybe just help us set the stage. Benefits 101. Why do benefits matter for small businesses? And how do you think benefits impact retention for small businesses?
Yeah, everything you said absolutely resonates. Employee benefits are very complicated. And so, of course, as a small business, you have to wear 1,001 hats and you have to do so many jobs. You can be the master of none of them, especially something incredibly complicated and regulated like employee benefits. So I would say, some of the things that we think about employee benefits 101 is that you probably as a small business need to start offering employee benefits sooner than you might think to attract and retain the talent that you want. And we've seen some small businesses wait until it's too late and then they're caught flat-footed. So I remember I talked to a customer one time that wanted to hire someone and that person was only going to join if they offered employee benefits. And so they
Yep.
were at the end of the negotiation process. This customer had never thought about offering employee benefits before. And so they didn't even know, what are my options? How long is it going to take? When I think about offering a competitive benefit package, what do people like me in my industry and of my size offer? And thankfully, we have incredible supportive experts at Gusto that can help guide you through that type of conversation and get you access to benefits fairly fast. But you also, as a small business owner, you want to come in knowing what you want and what's going to move the needle. And I think that's another thing that's challenging for a small business. If they're thinking about it for the first time, they don't often go back and ask employees, what are you looking for in a benefits package? What would make the biggest impact for you? Because of course, owning a small business, oftentimes this is a family and friends game too. One of the first hires is probably going to be someone that you know. And so this is a topic that's near and dear to small business owners' hearts because they're trying to provide coverage for people that they not just work alongside, but that they truly love and care for. And so it's a decision that has, as you mentioned, a lot of financial implications for your business. And so you want to go into it talking to your accountant, talking to a small business advisor, and knowing what you can afford, knowing what your employees want and would make a real impact on their lives, knowing what your competitors offer in market and how it's going to help you stand out to attract the talent that's really going to make your business thrive and your ability to deliver real value to your customers.
And so our whole thing on the podcast is we're trying to help upskill founders and operators to start to think a little bit more like finance professionals, start to think about the decisions you make as capital allocation decisions. Benefits is one, it's an investment you're making. And you're not just arbitrarily making it, you're making it because you think it's going to improve the satisfaction, retention, and ability to attract talent to your business. And in turn, that should provide a better outcome for your customers because you're going to build the best team. And I think oftentimes it's hard to know where to start, right? It's like if you're going to get started as a small business, what's the first thing you look at? What's the first step?
Yeah, I think if you're going to offer benefits, one of the first things that you can do that's fairly easy and straightforward, it's pay time off. It's one of the things that you can do that right out of the box, there's, not nearly as many cost implications. So that is, I think, a no-brainer. When you hire your first employee, start to provide pay time off. I think next, when you start to ramp, you're probably going to ramp with health benefits. That's what we typically see small businesses do. And when you start to offer health insurance, the good news is you have many options. And so you'll typically see customers actually second offer workers' comp. And that's because there's usually state-by-state requirements. And in many states, you have to start offering workers' comp when you have just one employee. So I'd say that's kind of the second thing that we see. The health insurance then usually comes next. On average, we see that companies will start to offer health insurance when they have about 3 employees. And then next is going to be around a 401k. And that starts to usually happen when companies have about 5 employees. However, we see those numbers starting to drop right now because there has been an increasing number of state mandates that have passed. And so as of May of this year, 20 states have now passed state mandated retirement programs. And there's 13 states that now have active programs. And in some states like Oregon, you have to start offering retirement benefits when you have just 1 employee. I would say 5 is the average that we see across states. And in some states, it's higher. But I would say that's like the ramp that we typically see for companies when they start to offer benefits.
Yeah, the states add complexity because all the regs are not the same. And I think it's never been easier to start a business. You can start one with a laptop and pretty much $1 in your bank account. So I think you're going to start to see a higher volume of small businesses started. And every business needs great employees. And I think you're going to start to see folks like you don't need to offer this stuff right out of the gate. And sometimes it's not as easy to get done, but even if you're an owner operator, like you're going to want to try to figure out how to set this stuff up for yourself at the same time. So we have a people operations offering that kind of sits adjacent to our accounting services offering and our tax offering. And we found that when you couple the three, it checks the box for all the foundational pillars that you need as a small business to run the back office. And on the people operations offering specifically, oftentimes we end up playing the role as like a liaison between Gusto and small business because we know their business really well. We know where they stand financially. They don't always necessarily know all the right questions to ask, how to think about sequence or how to approach it. So oftentimes a big part of our role is just making sure that we help represent them at the table with our partners to make sure that they're making the right decisions. It's affordable. You're thinking it all through. And it's also, I think, once you start to offer benefits on top of comp, how you position it with your employees is also super important because if you don't position that as a full statement of comp and benefits, like sometimes even the making the investment, sometimes it can be overlooked if you don't make sure that it's positioned the right way. And you got to get all this stuff baked into all your employee materials, handbooks, all that stuff. That's a lot for small business to take on. So we've really appreciated the partnership with Gusto over time. And we actually see that as being one of the higher potential offerings we have because I think more and more companies are going to need to do this earlier and the complexity is only going to continue to increase. Okay. So you have 400,000 small businesses on the platform. I'm assuming you have lots of data and insights about ROI and how these decisions impact your small business clients over time. What's one that you measure and talk about all the time with your small business clients? If you offer this benefit, this will be the impact on your business, retention, employee satisfaction. Can you throw like a fun fact at us that we don't all have access to all the time?
Yeah, I love this question. You are exactly right. We do get some really interesting data that we can cut in different ways to look at things like ROI and employee satisfaction. So I'd say one that we talk about often is that our data shows that employers that offer health insurance, their employees are 25% less likely to quit during their first year of employment on average. And in particular sectors, it's actually higher than 25%. So professional services, that number increases to 30%. And so for businesses where the average salary is greater than $60,000 per year, offering health insurance has a positive return on investment just because of how much it reduces that worker attrition.
Would you know approximately how much does it reduce the attrition risk-ish?
Yeah, okay. I thought you might ask a question like this. And given the financial savvy of this audience, I thought we would geek out for a second and go through an entire
Okay.
exploration of all the costs.
Ooh,
Uh,
let's do. Okay.
okay, are
Take
you
us
ready?
home. Yeah.
Right. All right. So, for example, you've got a company in the professional services industry and they have 5 employees. And so, if they offer health insurance, that is going to translate to zero point 0.6 fewer employees lost in a year on average. So, it can cost anywhere between 0.5 to 2x of an employee's salary to replace them. And that is baking in the recruitment costs, the lost productivity cost, that kind of brain drain that goes out with that employee. And so, if we just take kind of a middle of the road number for that, and we assume it costs about 100% of an employee's salary to replace them, and that salary is $85,000 per year, the company would then save $51,000 per year in replacement costs by offering health insurance. So a typical health insurance premium for a company of this size would be around $6,500 per employee. Now, of course, this is going to vary drastically depending on the state you live in, depending on the type of health plan you offer, but we're just going to go with kind of a typical. So 6,500. And so if the company pays 75% of the employee premium, it would cost the company just over $24,000 to offer health insurance to all of its employees. So by
Mm.
offering health insurance, this company has realized a cost savings of over $26,000 per year, which is going to then translate into 109% return on investment.
You were prepared. That's incredible. And I think there's also an impact that's harder to measure. If you're a services business, I think when you lose an employee, you run the risk of client attrition too, because relationships are so important. And that's like really hard to quantify the impact of that. But that's incredible. Are you able to measure? I don't know how you would do this. Maybe you can do this somehow, but like the impact on business performance, like the attrition rate of small businesses is notoriously high. A lot of them don't make it past 5 years. Are you able to quantify the impact on longevity and the ability to keep the business moving forward when they are on a platform and working with providers who can help get all the stuff set up the right way?
So we have some data. We don't always have enough data to get it to a significant
Sure.
place where we've got all of that. But here's what I would say is you pair something like that where we do have very hard figures and we've got a lot of data, so we can be quite sure into the
Yeah.
types of that. And then you pair it with the anecdotal data, which is exactly what you're talking about. The true lived experience that employee attrition is incredibly painful. This is
Yeah.
someone that you've trained, you've worked alongside, that you trust in a services industry. Clients follow really great managers and really great relationships. And so if they go to a competitor that you don't have a ton of differentiation with, and maybe your differentiation was fantastic service that is powered by the people that work at your firm, that is a real risk to your business. And so I think anecdotally, we hear that from small businesses frequently.
Yeah. I'm sure you run into this all the time where a small business thinks they're too small. We're too small. We don't need to do these things yet. Where do you think that comes from? Because we hear it too. Oh, maybe we don't need an accountant yet, or I can do my own tax return, or I can run my own payroll because we're too small. Where do you think that stems from?
There's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to employee benefits, that being
Yeah.
one of them, that, oh, I'm actually too small to offer benefits, or no, I can't afford employee benefits. And so I think it's just one of the misconceptions that kind of plagues the industry. But I think what we see is that when small business employers get really excellent advice and they overcome those misconception hurdles and they start offering benefits, there's this buoyed sense of confidence that I love to see with customers. When you're talking to customers and they start offering benefits for the first time and they're seeing it impact their bottom line. They are seeing it impact employee satisfaction and employee productivity. Their eyes light up and they talk about the fact that, wow, for the first time, I feel like I can really compete for the best talent in my market against big companies. I couldn't have gotten this talent if it wasn't
Mhm.
offering benefits. So that's a really gratifying moment when you're talking to customers and you can see just viscerally that it's making a positive impact on them and their employees' lives.
Yeah, it makes you as an employer, when you can offer great benefits and a nice quality life and peace of mind for employees, that's a really good feeling. And I think that type of confidence and momentum, it will just feed into your business as a whole. So what benefits have the biggest impact on that ROI?
I say the two are health insurance and 401k. And the important thing to know about health insurance too is health insurance is not just a single solution. There's many options when it comes to health insurance and an
Yeah.
increasing number of options. As premiums have increased, companies like Gusto and other amazing companies out there are innovating in this space to make benefits more accessible and easy to use for employers and making them more affordable. Everyone, for the most part, is familiar with fully insured small group health insurance. This is like the traditional health insurance that everyone knows. But
Yep.
there's other options as well. So there's HRAs, those are health reimbursement arrangements. This is like an ICRA or a QSERA for people who might have heard of those before. And what these do is it gives employers ultimate choice and flexibility to determine how much, as a small business, you want to contribute to your employees' premium and reimburse them. And then in turn, the ultimate flexibility comes because these employees can then go and find the health plans that best meet their needs. And you might have employees with very different needs. If you can imagine a healthy 22-year-old woman who does not yet have kids compared to a 55-year-old man with 3 children, those are really different profiles in terms of what they're looking for from a benefits package. And so this allows the employee to go off and find the best plan that meets their individual needs. And as a small business owner, you get to be pretty hands off with all of this. You can determine the reimbursement. It only takes you a few days to get set up. And then your employees can be off managing their own benefits.
Can you explain the ICRA? Because I don't think a lot of people know what it is. I just do like ICRA 101. Like, what is it, and why is it something that everybody should know? And is it is it a new option too, compared to what folks are traditionally used to being able to access?
Yeah, it is absolutely a new option. So I forget the exact year, but maybe 2022. So QSERAs have been around longer than an ICRA. And both of these are health reimbursement arrangements. And so when you work with a health reimbursement arrangement, rather than me as an employer going off and saying, okay, I'm going to get a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan from Florida, and everyone in my company has to use the same plan. You say, you know what? I crunch the numbers, and for my business, I can afford to reimburse my employees $400 for their benefits premiums. And so I set that $400 amount. And then you've got Mary and you've got Jim, and they're going to go off, and Mary and Jim are going to go and shop for the health benefit plan that best meets their needs. And they can choose different plans. One of them can choose a Blue Cross Blue Shield plan. One of them can choose a plan from Cigna or from Aetna. And so each of them can go off and find, and maybe they live in different states. And so maybe there are different health insurance providers in their states that they really want to be in network with. So rather than having to find a plan that will meet all of your employees' needs, it gives employees a ton of choice while making it quite easy for you to manage it in a more hands-off fashion.
Where can they access the plans? Are they getting it through like an exchange? What means are the employees able to go out and search for coverage?
Yeah. So the other interesting thing about health insurance is I think oftentimes you will hear from local brokers, or there's kind of like a misconception from local brokers that you could go to a different broker, you can get different plans. To some extent, that's true, but to another extent, there's many platforms that can give you access to the same plans and the same pricing based on like your general profile characteristics, given your
Yep.
age, your location, things like that. And so to get access to these plans, we work with a few different companies, and one of them is called Take Command. And Take Command will manage all of this for you. So they will manage both you as a small business owner, getting everything set up into your employees, and then they help your employees actually find the plans and enroll in the plans directly through their platform.
It's incredible. Yeah, that's really because especially you're very likely to have employees in multiple states
Yeah.
now, and it's hard to find a couple of plans that meet everybody's needs. And there can be rules about how many employees you need to enroll in certain plans if you get traditional coverage. So I love the flexibility that offers.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because for traditional small group health insurance, you do have to have employee minimums that you meet,
Yep.
where those are lower on the HRA options, whether it's an ICRA or a QCRA. And so there just is like quite a bit of flexibility. We can oftentimes see companies that graduate from individual health insurance into something like an HRA. And then as you're scaling, we typically see that once you hit a certain threshold, you're more likely to be interested in small group health insurance coverage just because of the quality of insurance that you can get once you get to a certain scale can be quite
Yep.
good. And then oftentimes what we see is companies can graduate from individual health insurance coverage to what's called a level funded health plan. So a level funded health plan is a type of self-funding. And essentially what this does is this is a great option if you have starting to get like more employees. Let's talk about the 5+ range. You're in the 7+ range and you're seeing your premiums rise. What a level funded plan allows you to do if you are a younger, healthier group is you can actually get a quote for health insurance premiums for your individual group. So rather than looking at another group who might have a lot of healthcare costs and claims, if your group is younger and healthier, you can actually save a substantial amount of money. And so what we've seen is companies that have gone from traditional health insurance to a level funded plan, on average, they've saved 20% on their premiums.
Wow.
And so this is all because we're quoting for your specific group. And so you get all those cost savings back by just being like younger and healthier.
So I love all this. Health insurance has come a long way since I started my career. I remember being like 22 and sitting down where like the local broker would come into the conference room with everybody and give you a piece of paper and they would give you all their options. And I remember having absolutely no clue
Of
what any
course,
of it meant or what decision to make. And that was the way the industry ran for a long time. It was the brokers, everything was done on paper. Once you signed up, you didn't really have a resource anymore. And I just remember feeling really uneducated for a very long time as an employee. And I'm sure employers, for the most part, feel the same way. Okay. I'd love to talk about the different types of industries. Which industries are you noticing leading the charge on benefit packages for their employees?
this will come as no surprise to anyone, but typically what we see is industries that are leading in terms of their health insurance offerings. It's very correlated with employee salaries for the most part. And
Yep.
so your tech workers, your professional services, those are typically the industries that we see offer kind of like the richest benefits packages. But we do also see other trends, which is pretty interesting. So one example of that is for 401ks. We started to get into this. 401k is another one that can dramatically increase employee retention. And so typically what we see is the cost starts to pay for itself in terms of lower staff turnover. So on Gusto's platform, what we saw is that workers on average are 40% less likely to leave in their first year when they're offered retirement benefits. And for some jobs, this jumps up as high as 54%. So this effect is highest for the professional services sector, but it's also really high for retail and food and beverage. And retail and food and beverage are actually the least likely to offer retirement plans out of all the different industries we see on our platform.
Yep.
The impact on Americans' financial security really just, it can't be overstated. Today, more than 40 million employees don't have access to retirement benefits. And so if they were to receive those from their employers collectively, they'd be able to save as much as $5.7 trillion in 20 years. And I would just say, like, amid this climate of uncertainty, what we hear from employers and employees is that the peace of mind that knowing that as an employer, your workers are covered, their families are covered. And as an employee, knowing that your kids, the people that you care about most in life, they're covered with health benefits and that you're saving for retirement, and retirement will eventually, when it's the right time for you, will be within reach. You're able just to stay focused, come to work, be your best self, do your best work, deliver the best you can on behalf of your employees. And so it just really helps the business's bottom line because they've got workers that are committed, that are grateful to be able to have those benefits, and they can just stay focused because that mental weight of not being sure if you have coverage or how to access it can be alleviated.
I think financial stress is literally the worst type of stress any individual or business can be under. It just impacts your energy, your psyche, your decision making. And I think as an employer, if you're building a company, developing your employees is your job. It's not just to make them better at their job, but help them be better in life overall. And you got to take some responsibility as an employer to make sure that you're doing your part to set your team up for success in the long run. It's one of the best investments you can make for your team. So we love nonprofits at Hiline. So we have a great growing nonprofit practice. And I think about that cohort of companies as a whole. Generally speaking, they're on operating budgets and they're constantly sourcing funds and grants to make sure that they can fulfill the mission to the community. And there's not always tons of excess capital laying around to be able to do these things. What do you see with your nonprofit clients? Where do you think that they could do things differently or make improvements for the same reasons? But it doesn't matter if you're for-profit, nonprofit, you want your team there to put out the best product that you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about nonprofits is they tend to be, by nature, much more mission driven. They are trying to accomplish some type of good in the world. And so they are doing the hard work to make that a reality, which is incredible and also comes with financial constraints because they don't have the same business model, of course, as for-profit company. So one of the things that we do see is they tend to offer HRAs more than for-profit companies. And this is in part because they get to control the amount of premiums. So it's affordable at the rate that they set. So it allows them to be much more in control of their finances. So I think that's a really great one. And the other thing that's important to note about the HRA versus small group health insurance that we touched on, but my guess is that most people don't understand the gravity of this dynamic. So when it comes to offering benefits, geography plays a huge role. There are certain states in which it is generally much more affordable to offer small group health insurance. So these are states like California, Utah, Arizona, Alabama, Illinois. And there are other states for which it is almost always more affordable to offer individual health insurance, which you get through an HRA. So in addition to the industry component, we also see really different adoption trends of the types of benefit offerings based on geography.
Interesting.
It all really depends on what's important to you. And that's why when we start talking to small businesses about offering benefits, the two initial things we say that you should always do is first, go talk to your financial advisor, understand how much you can really afford and how this could affect your bottom line. And two, go talk to your employees. What's important to them in a health benefits plan? Do they need coverage that costs a certain dollar amount? Are they looking for doctors in a particular network? Are they looking for a particular type of medical carrier? Would they prefer more choice, or would they prefer instead to not have to take on that burden of doing the research? So all those things, I think ending up with an employee benefits package that is ultimately going to drive the most impact on your bottom line, that starts by knowing your customer. And your customer in this case is the employee. So ask them what they want.
Yep. It's like product market fit, right? Like you don't want to assume you want to go out and make sure that you actually fulfill the need. So just like tactical advice, right? So folks will probably have to listen to this a couple times because they're thinking, I heard all these different acronyms, there's different choices. I understand how they can be relevant to me. Can you maybe like a quick example of walking through the scaling of benefits, right? So you can use health insurance probably is the one that would scale. PTO, I think, can be stagnant regardless of size. And then add an 401k over time. So what's the progression in employee count size where folks should start thinking about scaling things up? I think it'll help people place themselves on where they are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you are a solopreneur. You are the only person at your company. Where do you start? You start by getting individual health insurance. And so that will be a great plan for you. And it might help you through, let's say, employee like 1 to 3, because oftentimes when you hire that first employee, it might be your brother-in-law, or it might be a neighbor that you know from down the street. And you might know that person already has coverage from their spouse, or they're still able to be on their parents' plan. And so the most important thing for them is actually not having health insurance. It's something else. So you can get by an individual health insurance until you have a few employees. Know, however, when's going to be the right moment that you're looking for talent in your market that you're going to need to be able to offer health benefits for to be able to attract and retain that talent. So keep a pulse on that. And then I would say when you get to that 2 to 3 employee size, that's when you're going to start to look at an HRA. Then you're going to be ready to probably graduate into small group health insurance at that 4 to 5 employee size. That's going to serve you for a few years, get you through your next few hires, make sure that you're attracting the right type of talent in market. And then you might see that your premiums are starting to go up. And so you're going to be looking for ways to control costs. And so probably at that like 9 to 10 employee mark, that's when you're going to find that a level funded plan, if you have that younger, healthier group, is going to be able to save you a substantial amount of money. 20% on premiums in the climate is nothing to sneeze at. It has an incredible amount of cost savings for a small business. So once you get to that kind of 9 to 10 is when you're going to start to offer something like a level funded plan to save you on those premiums. And then alongside all of that growth trajectory, you're going to want to start to think about when is the right time to offer retirement benefits. If you're in a state like Oregon, you're going to have to offer it from day one, employee one. For most other states that have the mandates, those are in place starting at 5. And I would say that's pretty typical. Even before the state mandates were in place, we typically see employers at the kind of 5 employee mark start to offer a 401k. And then you're going to get to, let's say, 10 to 15 employees, and it's going to be more likely that you're going to offer a match on your employees' contributions. So I would say that's typically what we see in terms of how you might scale from a 1-person company, let's say, to a 20-person company and start offering health and retirement benefits along the way.
You're nailing the case studies today. Well done. Very well done. And what about any tips on how to communicate benefits clearly to your employees too? As you're making these changes, you can imagine like you're going to have to continue to message changes, differences, like why we're doing the things we're doing. What have you found that helps with the communication motion for small businesses?
Yeah. Keep the communication open and transparent. Communicate early and often. And so that comes from those employee conversations or employee surveys to understand really what they're looking for in a benefits package. Simplify language around complex topics like health insurance. Like you pointed out, there are 1,001 acronyms. There is so much in-depth knowledge that's incredibly hard for people to grok and understandably, especially employees that are earlier in their career. They just haven't been exposed to this before, right? Even on their parents' health insurance plans, they never really had to think about health insurance before. So this is a great time to be really transparent with them. Both, I would say, in terms of the investment that you're making and making it clear, this is a really big business investment. And I'm doing this because I believe in you as an employee and I want to cover you as an employee. I want you to be able to show up and do your best work. And so we're making an investment in you. And this is the overall benefits package that we're able to offer because of that.
Yep. I think that's really well said. Communicate often. Yeah. I don't think you can expect your employees to understand how much effort goes into picking benefits, getting everything done behind the scenes to finally be able to unveil it and give it to them. Anytime you're changing something with benefits or comp, it can be really easy for things to be misconstrued if you're not clear and transparent. And it can almost feel like maybe I'm losing something. So you just don't want to send off the wrong signal. So I think you're 100% spot on. Communication about everything you're doing and why you're doing it, I think is really important. Okay. I feel like I learned a ton today, by the way. So hopefully my questions weren't too basic, but I did definitely learn something today. Let's do a couple rapid fire questions before we wrap it up.
Always. I believe that we should wake up every day and have fun at what we do. And so nothing would elate me.
All right. You ready? Lightning round. Biggest myth about employee benefits.
I would say 3 come to mind. First, you can only offer health insurance at the beginning of the year. Not true. Local brokers can get me better rates than a company like Gusto. Also not true. It's highly regulated. We all get the same rates. Small group health insurance is unaffordable. That's also not true because you have many options that we've talked about.
That was perfect. Most underrated employee benefit.
401k have the highest ROI.
Love it. One thing that makes you feel taken care of at work.
I would
as
say
an employee, health
as an
insurance.
employee, health insurance. I have 3 kids. So coming to work every day and knowing that no matter what happens when I see my 6-year-old scaling a 35-foot tree outside and being like, oh dear God, get him further down from that tree. But knowing that he has insurance, that made me feel a little bit better.
I love it. All right. How about one HR horror story in as few words as possible? It may require a bit of a story, but what's one that stands out to you that is something you just don't want to see replicated again?
So I have been very lucky in my career, but I do have a good one. So I don't know if your listeners will be familiar with this, but there is something called the Moth, and they do the Moth Radio Hour, which is featured on over 500 stations nationwide. including NPR. So shout out to public radio. And so at this storytelling event, people who are interested in telling a story, they get to put their name in a hat, and then they will draw out 10 names. And if your name does not get drawn, but you put your name in the hat, they invite you up at the end to get a single sentence, tantalizing description of what your story would have been if they had been able to hear your story. And so everyone is just on the edge of their seats, knowing that they missed a really incredible story. So here is my HR horror story, told in one sentence, small style, with very liberal use of non-period punctuation. Okay. No, over a decade ago, interviewing at a Denver company, 3 white guys aged 60 plus grilled me in a small, frigid conference room, asking me if I was married, if I had kids, or if I planned to. This job required travel, and it would not be a good fit if so. Glancing down, seeing their wedding rings glinting, it enraged me. The audacity, the hypocrisy. I politely exited with grace, and I never looked back.
That's insanity. That still happens in modern society, but I know that it still does. Thank you for sharing that. That's awful. And it sounds like you ended up at a good spot with Gusto.
Yeah, Gusto's a fantastic employer. I've loved my journey here.
Yeah, we love Gusto. So talk to us about Gusto. Where can people listen and find out more about Gusto?
Gusto has incredible resources, whether you use Gusto or not. We have incredible content. We have guides on running payroll for the first time, offering employee benefits for the first time, learning more about what is an HRA, what is an ICRA, what is a QSARA, how do level fund plans work, what is stop loss insurance. All of that you can find on Gusto's blog, so gusto.com. We are on all of the socials, so find us anywhere there, pick your platform of choice, and we will be there.
Okay. One last question. I hear Gusto. I hear Gusto. What is the correct pronunciation? I think everybody wants to know. It gets used both ways.
I don't know. This is a popular opinion, but I'll welcome all pronunciations. You know, we come from a different background. The most common pronunciation is Gusto. But if you hablas español y quieres decir gusto, está bien.
Honestly, it's usually folks I know on the West Coast will say Gusto. East Coast, it's Gusto. It must be like an accent thing, but
yeah.
Okay. Leah, this has been great. I think you dropped a lot of interesting knowledge. There's probably a lot more we could cover because we've probably just started to pique folks' interest in terms of what they should know, what they should be doing to make their small business even better. But thanks for joining us today. I had a lot of fun and I learned a ton, and I'd love to have you or Gusto back at any time in the future to keep it going.
Yeah, Matt, this has been so much fun. So thank you so much for having me on. This has been so much fun. And thank you for all the incredible work that you all are doing at Hiline. We really love what you all are doing.
Yeah, and thank you for helping us make our clients' life more fiscally awesome. Thank you again, and we'll check in soon.
All right,
Thanks,
awesome.
Leah. Cheers. Bye.